Have you ever been trapped on a crowded airplane, miles above the ground, with a baby's relentless cries echoing through the cabin like a siren that won't stop? Picture this: a distraught millionaire father, dressed in a tailored suit, desperately rocking his infant son in first class, while passengers shoot dirty looks and plug in their earbuds. But just when tension reaches a boiling point, a young black girl from economy class stands up and does something so unthinkable, it changes everything, and everyone's hearts. What she did next will leave you in tears and restore your faith in humanity. Stick around to find out, because this story loops back in a way that will make you see kindness in a whole new light. If stories like this touch your soul and remind you of the good in the world, smash that like button right now and subscribe to the Kind Hearts Stories channel for more uplifting tales that warm your heart and inspire your day. In the bustling terminal of New York's JFK Airport, Alexander Harrington paced impatiently, his Rolex glinting under the fluorescent lights as he cradled his 6-month-old son, Lucas, in one arm while barking orders into his phone with the other. At 42, Alexander was the epitome of success, a self-made millionaire who had built a tech empire from nothing, his apps revolutionizing how people connected online. But today, success felt like a distant memory. Lucas had been fussy all morning, his tiny face scrunched in discomfort, and Alexander's wife, Elena, had passed away just 3 months after giving birth, leaving him to navigate fatherhood alone amid board meetings and investor calls. The flight to London was a necessary evil for a crucial merger, but as they boarded the plane, Lucas's whimpers escalated into full-blown wails that pierced the air like shards of glass. Passengers settled into their seats, some in economy exchanging sympathetic glances, others in first class muttering under their breath about the inconvenience. Alexander felt the weight of judgment pressing down. He tried everything, bouncing Lucas on his knee, offering a bottle warmed by the flight attendant, even playing soft lullabies from his phone, but nothing worked. The baby's cries grew louder, a rhythmic protest against the unfamiliar hum of the engines and the cabin pressure shifting as the plane ascended. In row 27, seat C, sat Aisha Thompson, a 22-year-old black girl from Brooklyn, en route to London for her first international internship at a nonprofit aiding refugees. Aisha had grown up in a tight-knit community where helping hands were as common as Sunday dinners, but her own life had been marked by loss. Her mother died when she was 10, leaving her to care for her younger siblings while her father worked double shifts. Music had been her solace. She sang in church choirs and wrote songs that captured the raw emotions of struggle and hope. As the plane leveled out at 35,000 feet, Lucas's cries reached a fever pitch, echoing through the aisles like an unending storm. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. A businessman in a pinstripe suit huffed loudly, while a mother with her own child whispered complaints to her husband. Alexander's face flushed with embarrassment and exhaustion. He was used to controlling boardrooms, not a colicky infant. He whispered apologies to no one in particular, his voice cracking as memories of Elena flooded back, her gentle touch the only thing that had ever soothed Lucas before. Aisha, headphones in, tried to focus on her playlist of soulful R&B, but the cries tugged at her heartstrings, reminding her of nights spent rocking her baby brother through teething pains. She glanced toward first class, separated by a thin curtain, and saw the father's desperation in his slumped shoulders. Something stirred within her, a mix of empathy and that unshakable pull to act, the kind her grandmother called the spirit's whisper. The flight attendants offered half-hearted assistance, but their scripted smiles did little to help. Hours ticked by, the cries unrelenting, turning the cabin into a pressure cooker of frustration. Whispers turned to grumbles. One passenger even demanded a seat change over the intercom. Alexander felt isolated, a millionaire adrift in a sea of annoyance, questioning every decision that led him here without Elena. Aisha fiddled with her necklace, a simple cross her mother had given her, and felt a surge of resolve. She wasn't sure what she could do, but sitting idle felt wrong. As the plane hit mild turbulence, jostling everyone and amplifying Lucas's distress, Aisha unbuckled her seatbelt and stood, her braided hair swaying as she made her way forward. Passengers watched curiously, some assuming she was heading to the restroom, but she paused at the curtain dividing classes, her heart pounding. The unthinkable was about to happen, born from a place of pure, unfiltered compassion that transcended wealth, race, and circumstance. Alexander looked up as she approached, his eyes weary and defensive, ready for another complaint. But Aisha's smile was warm, her voice soft as she said, "Excuse me, sir, I think I might be able to help." He hesitated, but in his exhaustion, nodded faintly. She knelt beside the seat, her presence a calm anchor in the chaos, and began to hum a gentle melody from her childhood, a West African lullaby her mother had sung, passed down through generations. The notes were low and rhythmic, weaving through the air like a soothing blanket. Lucas's cries faltered for the first time, his tiny body stiffening in surprise. Aisha continued, her voice gaining strength, the words in a language few understood but all felt in their souls. The cabin fell quieter, passengers leaning forward, intrigued by this unexpected intervention. Alexander watched in awe as his son's eyelids fluttered, the wails softening to whimpers, then to silence. Tears welled in his eyes, it was as if Alina's spirit had returned through this stranger's song. Aisha rocked gently, her hands never touching the baby but her energy enveloping him. The flight attendant paused mid-stride, smiling genuinely for the first time. Whispers shifted from complaints to murmurs of admiration. As the lullaby faded, Lucas sighed deeply and nestled into his father's chest, asleep at last. Alexander turned to Aisha, his voice choked with emotion. How did you know? She smiled humbly. Sometimes, all it takes is a familiar rhythm from the heart. In that moment, barriers crumbled, wealth meant nothing against the power of human connection. The plane continued its journey, but the atmosphere had transformed, a ripple of kindness spreading like wildfire. Aisha returned to her seat amid nods of gratitude, her own heart full, unaware that this act would spark a chain of events leading to lifelong bonds. The story was far from over, the unthinkable had just begun to unfold its deeper layers. With Lucas finally peaceful in his arms, Alexander Harrington sat stunned, the hum of the plane now a backdrop to his swirling thoughts. The young woman, Aisha, as she introduced herself before retreating, had vanished back to economy like a guardian angel, leaving him to ponder the miracle she'd performed. He glanced down at his sleeping son, whose tiny chest rose and fell rhythmically, and felt a pang of gratitude mixed with curiosity. Who was she? How had a simple song, in a tongue he didn't recognize, achieved what his high-tech gadgets and hired nannies couldn't? As the flight progressed toward London, Alexander's mind raced back to his life before this. Chaos. He'd met Elena at a charity gala, her laughter cutting through the pretentious chatter like sunlight. She was a humanitarian worker, always advocating for the underprivileged, and her influence had softened his cutthroat business edge. Losing her to complications after childbirth had shattered him, turning his world into a monochrome grind of deals and diapers. Now, this encounter felt like a sign from her, a reminder that kindness bridged worlds. In economy, Aisha settled back into her seat, her neighbor, an elderly woman, patting her hand approvingly. That was beautiful, dear, she said. Aisha blushed, explaining it was just an old family lullaby from her Ghanaian roots, one her mother used to sing during tough times. But inside, emotions churned. Caring for Lucas had unearthed memories of her siblings, whom she'd left behind for this opportunity, and the weight of her own dreams. The internship was her ticket out of poverty, a chance to make a difference globally, but doubts lingered. Was she abandoning her family like her mother had been taken too soon? Midway through the flight, as meal service began, Alexander couldn't shake the urge to thank her properly. He signaled a flight attendant and requested she be invited to first class. Aisha arrived hesitantly, her worn backpack contrasting the leather seats, but Alexander's genuine smile eased her nerves. They talked, first about Lucas, then deeper. He shared Alina's story, how she'd volunteered in African villages, teaching songs and stories to children. Aisha opened up about her upbringing, the resilience forged in Brooklyn's streets, and how music healed her grief. The conversation flowed like a river, revealing shared pains of loss and the drive to honor loved ones through action. Passengers nearby eavesdropped subtly, the earlier tension replaced by a collective warmth. Alexander learned of Aisha's internship, aimed at supporting displaced families, and felt compelled to help. Your organization, he said, I could fund a program in Alina's name. Aisha's eyes widened, it was unthinkable, a chance encounter turning into real change. As the plane descended into Heathrow, Lucas stirred but remained calm, as if the lullaby's magic lingered. Alexander and Aisha exchanged contacts, promising to stay in touch. But the story's true depth emerged post-landing. Weeks later, back in New York, Alexander launched a foundation merging his tech with humanitarian aid, inspired by Aisha's act. He invited her to lead a music therapy initiative for orphaned children, blending her cultural songs with modern apps. Aisha accepted, her internship evolving into a full role that allowed her to support her family while pursuing her passion. Their bond grew. Alexander found a surrogate sister in Aisha, and Lucas a playful aunt figure whose visits always included that special lullaby. Years passed, and on Lucas's 5th birthday, surrounded by friends from all walks of life, Aisha sang once more, the room filling with emotion. Alexander reflected on that fateful flight, How a baby's cries had been the catalyst for profound connections, proving that kindness, especially the unthinkable kind, could rewrite destinies. The once annoyed passengers. Many shared the story online, turning it into a viral tale of unity. Aisha's life transformed. She traveled the world, her songs healing countless hearts, always crediting that plane ride as her turning point. In quiet moments, Alexander visited Alina's grave, whispering thanks for the signs she sent. The unthinkable act, a simple song from a stranger, had bridged divides, mended souls, and created a legacy of compassion. It reminded everyone that in a world of noise and isolation, one voice could silence the storm and ignite hope. And as Lucas grew, he carried that lesson, becoming a bridge builder himself, all because a black girl on a plane dared to do what others wouldn't. The end circled back to that cabin cry, now a symbol of beginnings rather than burdens, echoing eternally in their shared story of redemption and love. What an incredible journey of kindness and connection, right? If this story moved you and left you smiling through tears, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Kind Heart Stories for more emotional tales that celebrate the best in humanity. Your support keeps these stories coming.